Hi, welcome to our live event from Mountain Careers. We are here. My name is Aryn Schlichting, and I'm the founder of Mountain Careers. I am here today to walk through a great presentation about identifying your dream job and creating a plan to make it here in the mountains. So, I'll tell you a little bit about myself as we go through today's presentation. But high level, my background is in recruiting and human resources. I founded Mountain Careers over 6 years ago now, and I am living in Vail, Colorado. So if you guys can take a minute while I make sure all my screen settings are good, and introduce yourself, maybe just say, where you're calling in from or where you're joining us from. If you already live in a mountain town, that's great for me to know. Or if you are dreaming of making the move, this is also a chance just to network and see who's out there and how we can help you make these dreams come true. So, go ahead and jump in the chat. For those of you who are new to Crowdcast, it works similar to all of the other platforms, except for it is just one-way communication tool. So if you guys can hear me, can you throw up a thumbs up um, in the chat, or go ahead and introduce yourself? That would be great. Perfect. Awesome. So, love to see that we have people going ahead and joining us here. So, let's get started. This is casual. This is an hour for me to spend time helping you guys figure out a little bit more what it's like to live and work in the mountains, some tips, some cool companies I would keep my eyes on, but don't hesitate to put a question in the chat and I can spend time digging into that. If I don't get to it while I'm talking, we'll definitely try to hit it at the end of today's presentation. So let's get started. What are we going to talk about today? So a few high level things. We're going to do a general overview of mountain town professional opportunities. It's important to know what the landscape is here, what industries are growing, and what percent, what are some of the salaries you can expect and things like that. So we're going to start with a general overview of some mountain towns. Of course, each mountain town is different, but there are some similarities as well. We're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to identify your skills and your goals. Really, how do you know? A big problem I see when talking to lots of professionals in the mountain is people might feel stuck. So really figuring out how do we identify what our goals are and how do we reach them, and then giving you ideas on how to reach them. Things that I know from either HR or recruiting, or from my general experiences living here. So a little bit about me. So I moved to Vail about 20 years ago. Like many people do, I went to CU Boulder and moved up to the mountains with tons of friends and had no idea what to do with my life. Just wanted to spend some time enjoying the mountains. Of course, that ended up staying here for another 20 years. But early on in my career, I started, teaching ski school and realized that, I wanted to, I felt this like calling inside. I wanted to do more. I wanted to, use my professional skill set. I wanted to be more involved in my community, but didn't really know what that would look like. I did land a job at Vail Resorts where I worked in human resources for about 12 years. And realized, oh my gosh, there's tons of people who want to live and work here who have moved to the mountains and work for one of the larger ski companies, but don't realize all the professional opportunities that might be there. That happened to me for about 10 years. I was like, what are we doing here? I want to have a career. I want to live in the mountains, but I also want to have a career. And that sort of tug back and forth pulled at me for years and years and years, until I started finding jobs that I loved. And then most importantly, when I found, when I started to realize there was a need for Mountain Careers. So I founded Mountain Careers because as an HR professional, I saw that we were hiring salaried positions with great benefits at companies that I had never heard of. And I had lived in the Valley for over 10 years. I thought to myself, if I have lived here for 10 years and work in HR and I never knew about these jobs, then there must be other people. And I didn't want other people to feel like they had to suffer. They either had to move to a city to enjoy a career, or this sort of notion that it's not possible to have both. So we founded Mountain Careers to prove that you can have both. It's not easy by any means, but that there are professional opportunities and that you can live a life that you love in the mountains. So this is pulled from a general website. This here we are focused. I am sharing data, some of the data from Eagle County. Oftentimes the data lags. So this I think is from 2020 was the date that I found it here. But it just did a great job of breaking out like what type of industries are available in mountain towns. We know that we're not New York City, we're not San Francisco, so we're going to have different jobs. Available, and a lot of those are going to be in the resort industry. I also like to remind people though, like it only takes one job, right? So even though we might have smaller jobs in areas like, technology or leadership, direct, being a director or manager at different places, that's just the one job you need. So don't be too disheartened by the fact that we don't have tons and tons of companies like other, urban areas, because large operations like hospitals, governments, growing companies still have those varying positions within them. So here you can see a breakout. As you might have expected, there is a lot of the jobs that fall under accommodations, food services, retail, construction. Real estate is another one that usually pops up for some high level ones. But it is important to look at the other opportunities that are here. Healthcare is definitely a growing opportunity. As I think of Aspen Valley Hospital, Vale Health here in our area, those are really great jobs, often paying really strong salaries, similar to an urban area. Also, you can think of more traditional jobs that are great to have in the mountains as well. Maybe working for the school district or one of the towns, Town of Vale, Eagle County, City of Aspen. All of those areas, all of those government operations are looking for people in accounting or for people in marketing and communications, right? Or people, city engineers, things like that. So just realize that even though they might be a smaller percentage, there are still tons of great opportunities here. We also have seen in our areas a strong push across at least the state of Colorado, but also in the California resorts as well that I follow, for entrepreneurs to land in our communities and found towns in our communities. That is supported by the state, where there's funding and investment firms specifically putting money behind startup companies, technology companies, manufacturing companies in our more rural mountain communities. So keep an eye out. There is definitely a startup scene in our mountain towns as well, as we usually attract, super talented people who are also risk takers. So here is just a general data I showed. As you guys, I'm sure you read the newspapers and hear all the headlines out there that we are struggling to hire in our mountain communities. As we run into the housing crisis, that means there is less places for people to live, and employers are having a hard time to hire. This is good news for you if you are looking for a new job. I saw applications drop by like 50% a year or two ago. And now I would say jobs where we used to get, 65, 70 applications for a really exciting job, maybe something in sustainability. Those application numbers are cut by a third. Now that it's harder to move here and relocate here. So employees who currently live in the mountains, use that to your advantage for sure. So pulling some general data out there as well. It looks like this is from 2020. I think this was either Eagle County or Pitkin County, which is the Aspen area. And you can find this just by Googling. I wanted to see what are some of if you look at our people living in the resort communities, where are they working? So here you can see, number of people working in community and social services career fields, and it said there's 400 people in this field, and it gives you the medium earnings, so over 100K for that. Then you can see some of these education positions, on average about 1,200 people were working in that. So just another touch point to show, first of all, reminder, you just need one of these opportunities for you. But also there's plenty of people working in these fields that you might not have thought of. Not everybody is employed at the resort or doing seasonal work. There are many, many more year-round people living in our communities and working in our communities. Some other great ones to note here is computer and IT jobs. We see these on Mountain Careers, definitely a growing field of interest. People either looking for engineers or more customer safe facing roles in all different industries. There's always a strong amount of office and administrative roles at our in our mountain communities. So just good things to keep your eyes and ears open for. So, we are going to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about your job search, figuring out your path and what's important to you. Um, Along the way, I'll give you some tidbits of places to network and ways to get plugged into mountain towns to give you an idea. But in general, I want you guys to put on that hat of, let's for the next, grab a piece of paper, grab a notebook, and just jot down some ideas as I go through these slides about what's important to you, maybe what goals you have for yourself, and then ideas to reach those. So this is just a reminder that finding a job that you love or putting yourself on a career path that is valuable to you and something you're excited about takes work and it takes effort and it takes time in your day. Just spending an hour, a month thinking about it is not going to get action or move you towards your goals. So a reminder here that nobody will care more about your career than you will. It's important to invest in yourself and make sure you take ownership of your own success. So put yourself in that mindset. You are the driver of your career. And it is possible to do this in the mountain towns, but you have to be your biggest advocate. So the first step is to develop your personal roadmap. So just like you would pull out a map for your next hut trip or hiking adventure or skiing, it's important to think about where you are currently and where do you want to go. I always encourage job seekers to dream big as they figure out their goals and where they want to be in life. I will show you guys and share a PDF that you guys can use to determine that. But it's really important to dream big. If you have just landed in a mountain town and you say to yourself, I want to be, the CEO of this mountain and operate it, or I want to be in a sustainability position that is changing policy around plastic bags in our communities, something like that. Those are goals and things that you can accomplish, and we're here to support you in that. So first and most importantly is to recognize where you are in your career. Did you just land in the mountains and take a seasonal gig? Did you move here working remotely and now want to transition into something that is more ingrained in the community? Understand where you are, understand where you want to go, and then what are those smaller action items that you can take to get there? It might be a new job, it might be volunteering somewhere. We'll talk about some of those options. So some questions to ask yourself if you're thinking like, sounds good, Aryn. I know I need a path. I know I need a career and but I just don't know what that is. And I don't know what my goals are. That is fair enough. I do find that often people who love living in the mountains, their passions are surrounded by outdoor activities, the community that they live in, and recreating outside is really what fills their bucket up. And the career has come second to some. And that is fine. But I promise by spending time exploring what a meaningful career might look like to you, you will find more joy out of your life here in the mountains, and also hopefully find more financial success as well. So some questions you might ask yourself if you're like, I don't even know what other job I might find or what I might want to do. Let's start to first identify what your skill sets are. What are you good at? And some questions you might ask yourself is like, what am I naturally good at or have experience in, of course? When am I most productive and engaged? So while you're at your current job, start to pay attention to, hey, do I get really excited when I get to work on this spreadsheet and these numbers and analyze this data? Or do I get more excited when I'm working one-on-one with an employee or a coworker on a project, right? So those types of little nuances will help figure out like what job might be best for you. When are you experiencing that sort of effortless work? Also interesting to look at, what do other people come to you for or point out that you're good at. If you're not good at seeing what your skill sets are, I bet if you ask one of your coworkers or a supervisor or a boss or even a good friend, they would be able to articulate what you're good at. What activities make me lose track of time? So, what are you working on and you didn't even realize that you spent an hour and a half working on that? And then also, it's really important to look back and figure out, like, what did I accomplish in the last 2 years? That might be a way to show you what you're good at. We're very quick as humans to just brush off, your accomplishments. And yeah, well, I did that because it was my job. No, you did it because you're good at it, and you can do that for another company, and there's value there. So now we've, thought to ourselves, hey, we want to have a plan. We don't want to just take the next job. We want to identify our skill sets and know that we're applying for jobs that use our skill sets. Um, but back to that whole point I shared earlier about having big dreams and priorities and goals. I also encourage job seekers to look at, what do they value? Do you value your vacation time? And being able to travel, 2 times a year? Do you value having a consistent paycheck? Are you just really ready to, like, work hard and make sure that you can retire at a decent age? It's important to figure out, like, what is important to me in a job, and then tailor your job search to those values. You might, want a job with more flexibility so that you can travel to Moab in the off seasons and get good use of your ski pass. Or you might say, hey, those things aren't important to me, but having some financial security is. So outline those goals, write them down. They will be important to you in your job search. Um, Another way to look at this when you're trying to plan, like, okay, so you asked me to have a roadmap. Where am I going? Is to think 5 or 10 years out, not just to think what's important to me in 1 or 2 years, but to say to yourself, where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? You don't have to write some big grand plan down, but just sit and say, in 5 years from now, where am I living? What type of work am I having? How much money is in my bank account? Things of those nature. And then you can back into what your goal is in a year or two, right? But first, we really have to think through, like, and I promise you, many of us are not good at that. We moved to the mountains because we love living in the moment. We love doing things that bring us joy, but not always thinking, oh, great. Not always thinking about, like, the long-term plan and strategy doesn't come easy to all of us. I don't want to do it now because it's not going to click, but Lululemon, I have talked to some people who've worked there, and they have a great worksheet that they provide to their team members that help them plan out what do you want your life to look like in 5 and 10 years, and what are some steps that you might take to get there. So I'm going to put that in the chat at the end of our call today. I have used it myself, and I think I don't have any affiliation with Lululemon, but I was able to Google it and find it online really easily. So there you go. That will be a nice item for you to think about. So I promise taking time and energy over the weekend to sit down and think about this, if you haven't already done so, is really impactful. Okay. So now in theory, we have this plan of where we're going, and we let ourselves dream big. If you're living in the mountains and you know it's expensive to buy a house, you might say, like, oh my gosh, in 5 years or 10 years, I want to own a house. That is my goal. I want to have a family, whatever those goals might be. But the point is that you are just dreaming big and putting it out there. I just use the example of buying a house. I know for a fact that many of our, local governments and other employers offer huge down payment assistance to help employees buy homes in these areas. I'm talking upwards of $100,000 of them putting money towards your first home purchase. So there are things that are possible depending on what jobs you decide to take. Okay, so we have our plans, we have our vision, we have our dream, we're ready to go. Next, let's start to think about what companies or jobs might fall in that. Once again, I would suggest that you're actually writing these things down and making a list of, based on your goals, based on your interests, and your values and what's important to you, let's start Googling around. Let's use Mountain Careers as a resource to see what jobs and opportunities are out there. Once you see a job posted on Mountain Careers, I would then suggest taking the next step and going to look at the company's website and job board. They might say that they're hiring for at the hospital, X-ray technician. But they might also have HR jobs available there that just didn't make it in the newsletter that week, or you didn't see it. So, continuing to be curious and following through and being open to that and spending time doing it is an important part. So, I would also just Google in your area, different jobs, different employers, add them to your list. Not every employer, although we wish, and we hope we will get there, posts on Mountain Careers. You can also find great resources just by Googling. I said ask chatbot because for those of you who are following all of the AI craze these days, it has been doing decently for search criterias. And so, you could probably go in there and say, what are the top 5 employers in Tahoe? And it will give you a nice little list. So use those resources. And I would also, like, if you have a chamber of commerce or read the weekly newsletter newspaper. Like when you see companies mentioned in there, follow through and just like learn more about the company. See if they have job openings. If they don't have job openings now, can you send them an email and ask them if they would keep your resume in file or have coffee with you should they have an opening? So right now the purpose is like figuring out what company you want to work for, keeping a list of them and keeping tabs on them. Here's just an example back to when I started the presentation today. I was clear that I had worked at Vail Resorts for over 10 years and had no idea of any other employers in the area, let alone the town of Vail, where I ended up working for 6 years. So these are just some recent job companies that have posted with Mountain Careers. We have a dentist office. We have a science school that runs amazing programs out of Keystone over in the Breckenridge area. They hire camp counselors and year-round program managers, diversity and inclusion officers. I mean, the science teachers, things of that nature. Vail Valley Foundation puts on huge events throughout the area, ski races to concerts. They also run different nonprofits. Forward Technologies is exactly what it is. They provide IT services to growing businesses in the mountains. Once again, we go back to local government out in Wyoming or Truckee area. So just to show you that we have a wide variety of opportunities in our mountain communities. Some of them, while some companies actually do extend across different mountain towns. That's not unheard of. Other times you could just say, oh, like I found a job at Teton County that I like, but I really want to be in Aspen. Chances are Aspen has a similar job, or Pitkin County might have a similar job. It might not be open right now, but how can you prepare yourself for that opening when it is ready? Any questions? I'll pause for a minute and see if anybody has anything they want to put in the chat. Okay. So step 3, I talked a little bit about it, is to be curious and to build relationships. Our mountain communities are tight knit and still run by word of mouth a lot. Facebook is much more prevalent. While the rest of the world is done with Facebook, I would say our mountain communities still use it heavily as a way to communicate across mountain towns, across community members and share events and things like that. So it is an important piece of finding your next job. Statistically, people who are well networked and know more people have an easier job of making connections and being ready for that next position. So part of your job of reaching your goals is going to be to put yourself out there in different relationship building settings and meet more people. This does not always have to be in a cheesy networking setting. It could be, attending outdoor events for people who are, skinning up the mountain after work, or it could be volunteering and meeting meeting different individuals there. The takeaway here is to be active in that, and be active in getting out, meeting new people outside of your traditional like social circle, and being involved. I promise you this will go far in any area, but most specifically in our mountain communities. We have a question here that I want to address. I feel like personal interactions. Yeah. So we were touching on this. So do you have any advice around creating real world connections that aren't just through LinkedIn, et cetera? I would say, I tell people all the time, just show up. When I first started Mountain Careers, I was um, shy. I didn't like putting myself out there. You have a day job. The last thing you want to do is go meet people after work. But I would just make myself go to things. We have something here called the Vail Symposium. So I started there. I would say like, okay, like once a month, I knew I needed more in my heart. I was like, I'm ready for more. I'm ready to do more. And I wasn't sure where to start. So I signed up for like a women's in business networking event. That was a great event. It wasn't like my niche. It wasn't like where I felt I fit in. I ended up actually going to a startup, a networking event for people who wanted to start companies. I did not have the full idea for Mountain Careers, but I just knew inside of me that I wanted to start something. And it was like clockwork. I reserved a babysitter every Thursday night and I made myself go. There was plenty of nights I did not want to go. I did not feel like being social and I just made myself go. I'm going to give you guys a few examples of where good places are to build those real world connections, as the question in the comment asked for. Traditionally, mountain towns have chamber of commerce that are used for that networking function. That is where a lot of networking starts. I would say with more people moving to our communities or to the towns, there is a need. People want to feel connected. Volunteering is always an easy one to go to. But here's some ideas of places I would look for events. So I put Facebook in here because if you just go to Facebook events and search by location, you will find things in your town and community, and Facebook is still a primary resource in mountain communities. I also went to Eventbrite recently and typed in Aspen, found tons and tons of different events. So, go try Breckenridge or Tahoe, your mountain community, to get a sense of are people putting events on here and are people meeting up. One of our favorite local brands, well, they're local here in Vail, but they are across mountain communities now, is Gravity House. They are a hotel / experience co-working event company. So they have hotels in lots of our mountain communities now that each have co-working spaces. They also host events. So they do things like hut trips, skinning after work, yoga classes, all different things, but they also do a spin on it to allow for creating that connection. Those are great. I do work from their co-working space often, and you just run into people and meet people. If you're in the Aspen area, this Aspen Real Life company organization, they are all about connection, and a majority of their the things that they put on are about connecting people in real life. So they do a lot of speaker events and in-person connections. There's also, most mountain communities now have a young professional association, and they don't judge by age per se. It's just a more fun, easygoing networking opportunity. I know that the Breckenridge area, Aspen Vale, Steamboat have them. And then also the startup communities. Most of our mountain towns have some sort of startup meetup going on. Even if you are not currently having a company that that you're launching, but just want to be connected to innovative people who are thinking out of the box and want to connect, I've found the startup scene to be very welcoming and a place where I've met people. So next step to applying is, of course, creating your resume and applying for jobs. the larger companies in the mountain communities might have those TA systems you hear about, or those robots reviewing your resume. So you'll want to make sure that just to know your audience when you're applying for a job. Are you applying for a big company? In which case, how are you tailoring your resume for that? Are you applying for a smaller job where you're just emailing them your resume and asking for a coffee date? But the goal here is to make sure sorry, that you are tailoring your resume to the individual job that you're applying for. I'm not going to, go into resume details fully, but what I do like to tell people about this step is, once again, networking is a huge, huge, huge um, piece here. So building your network around people who might work for a company that you're applying for, or who might know somebody there. I would always recommend that people follow up. Of course, being professional and making sure that you are conscious of somebody's time. But I have seen many success stories where the applicant who appropriately followed up, introduced themselves, asked for 10 minutes on the phone to share how their resume, while they might not look qualified on paper, why they would be the best candidate for the position. And then, might have somebody call me as a reference for them. I've seen that be successful. So if you are applying for a job and sitting around and just waiting for someone to call you back, I would highly recommend that you do a professional follow-up, and that your focus is really on explaining why you're good for the position and why you want to work for the company specifically. That if you are out of state and moving to a mountain town, the first question employers will have is, in many cases, they won't believe that you'll be able to make the move. So it is important to articulate how you plan to make the move, or why living in the mountains is so important to you. Many hiring teams and hiring managers have been burned before, where somebody thinks they want to live here, and then they can't actually make the move, or they move out here and then they're surprised when it's snowing in, June, and they just find out the mountains are not for them. So another reason we started Mountain Careers is we knew that hiring managers wanted to talk to people living in different mountain towns. If you were successful in living in Aspen and that was the lifestyle you wanted, or in Carbondale, you're more likely to understand how to live in the mountain communities. So the next step here is, although we are focused on what our goals are and how we're going to reach them, or how we're going to apply for a job that helps us reach our goals, it is also important to remember that nothing is more important than your reputation when you're trying to grow your career. It's important to make sure that you are showing up and being your best at your current job, regardless if it is your dream job. So lots of people, when living in the mountains, you might have taken a seasonal job, or taken a job that is not what you expected, or just you wanted something more. But the best thing you can do is, do a great job at that. Make sure you're bringing valuable, regardless if it's your dream job or not. And then a tip here is, it's critical to distinguish between the job and the way you do it, right? So you might not love the job, but you can love how you do the job. So just a reminder that in these small communities, if you are not a great employee at one location, that is not going to serve you well in your job search. So make sure that you are continuing to do great work where you currently are. Some tips. We talked a lot about connection, and that continues to be one of the most important things I think you can do in a mountain community, or anywhere, is to get outside of your comfort zone, meet new people, put yourself out there, get involved in the community some way, somehow. Volunteer, take on additional projects at work. As I said, that another great way to get involved in a community is, boards, or working, volunteering for boards at the local government. Our towns are small. And so understanding the politics is, you can wrap your hands around it, and you can, actually see some action. So, each board might have, a review committee that reviews events that are coming up, or looks at housing budgets. So definitely another way to get plugged in would be to volunteer there. So question, does your job site allow job seekers to post their resumes? So we have not. We have looked at that, adding that feature. I think I'm always hesitant with LinkedIn Would that be helpful, or would employees want to put themselves out there as somebody who's seeking a job? So I'd love to explore that more with you, Aryn. It's definitely something we can easily activate on our site. So I should continue to look into that. And then the last question was, does your company have hiring clients that reference your site when looking for talent? Because we don't function as a recruitment firm at this point, we just function as a job board. We don't, but I have, like I said, I think it's an interesting way to expand our services to employees, and we can definitely explore having candidates be able to build out a profile, in which case companies would then come to seek to check on those. Great question. Thank you. Another thing which has come true in my life as well is to get a side hustle that aligns with your goals. So if you might not be able, if you didn't find your dream job right when you landed in the community, and you have a skill set that's being underutilized, I would work on a side hustle. It's a great way to build your skill sets and help prepare for your next career. So I am an HR professional. I have a day job, but on the side, building mountain careers has given me an extraordinary technology skill. I understand technology, social media, communications, all of the things because of my work in mountain careers, that then benefits me in my day jobs, and I believe has set me up for success in that realm. So side hustles, well, they can be good for earning money. I would also advise that you look for one that also aligns with your goals, and figuring out how that can better build your skill sets. Personally, as a recruiter, when I look at employee or applicants who have done things on the side or have side projects, things like that, to me, it just shows that you have a motivated person who's super interested in the field they're trying to get into. Leading us to our next thing, be known in your field and really be an expert in it. So that might take, if you're working at a bike shop, I'm just going to use this example, and you're interested in transportation and biking and how that all works. For somebody who's then doing those things outside of work as well, it just really helps set them apart as a candidate, because their knowledge base is going to be so much more. If they're reading those bike magazines, if they're, attending conferences or listening to podcasts, like all the things that you can do these days to consume information, it's just going to make you a stronger professional in your field. Here are the examples of being known in your field would be, to ways I would advise that is, of course, LinkedIn, sharing your knowledge on LinkedIn, attending conferences, sitting on panels, joining webinars. So just making yourself active in your field will help set you apart as well. So this question is to you guys. What are some actions you will take to get to your goals? Really think about that. Some small, and I recommend small actions. If big ones sometimes get in the way and you might feel disheartened if you haven't accomplished them. But I do think if you showed up in this webinar and are inspired to figure out what your next steps are, what your next career goals are, and you're trying to get from here to there, and you want to start dreaming big, it's important to spend time on this. Some small steps that you can take are, start following the companies that you are interested in, that you put in your job search on LinkedIn. And then you can do a little stalking to see who works there, who might you have connections with, things of that nature. I would also, this is what I had done for myself, set out to reach out to one person who can help accomplish this goal. So as you went through your things today, to think to yourself, okay, what are the barriers I might be up against, and who might be able to help me get past those? So it could be as simple as shoot, I haven't told my boss that I am ready to be a manager yet. Okay. So let's think, is maybe your boss is the person can help you. Maybe the HR person at your organization can help you. So who is one person who can help you accomplish a goal? Share your goals out loud. I've seen this come to fruition many times in the organizations I work with. Those people who, let's say you're hired as a seasonal landscaper and you really have IT skills, but you moved to the mountains and you took the first job and you wanted to be outside. So you are, either a bus driver or a landscaper, but you have technology skills and you hope to work for a tech company one day. Tell people that. and tell your supervisors that, and stop in the HR office and tell people like, hey, I love my job. I'm happy to be part of the organization. But if you ever, if anything ever opens up in the IT department, or of any tech companies, like, I'd love for you to refer me. That is, that can go far. So if you have these goals of, switching careers or things of that nature, start to put feelers out there, start to say it out loud. Keep learning. This is my favorite thing to do, but listen to podcasts, keep reading, doing things like that. It will definitely help you in your career, and don't get stuck. I think it's way too easy in our mountain towns. We don't have as many learning opportunities as people have in urban areas. We don't have as many networking events. So you really have to put yourself out there, and you really have to lean in. Like, you are the only person who's going to drive this. But I know it is possible. So just tell yourself, I'm not going to get stuck. It is okay to feel stuck. I would say probably every 2 years you feel stuck again, right? Because you met a goal, you felt uncomfortable for a year, and then you settled in and you're like, uh-oh, that feeling of like, I'm ready for more is coming back. And that's okay. The process starts over again. Where do I want to be in 5 years? What do I want to accomplish? What am I good at now? What's important to me now? Those things will change. So, those are my tips for today's presentation. These were just little reminders of things we talked about today. What is my personal vision? Can I spend time brainstorming it? What's holding me back? What are my wildly big goals of living in a mountain town? What are some actionable steps, and who might be able to help me get there? Mountain Careers is here to help and support you guys. This is my passion. This is what I do. I help people find jobs in the mountains, and I help it become a reality. I love uncovering companies that might be a good fit for you guys. So if there's anything I can do as a resource, I am going to put my email in the chat. So I am going to stop sharing for a moment. And I'm also going to email you guys just to get your feedback on the presentation. If it's something that's helpful, if it's something you'd recommend to a friend, that is really always of interest to us. I also wanted to give you the link that I promised in the beginning, which I borrowed from Lululemon. The other thing for anybody who is starting that sort of like soul searching, what's next for me, I really recommend the book Designing Your Life and Designing Your Work Life. That those books are easy reads and are right in line with, I would say, people living in the mountains, their values. It's not like, how do I become the fastest, richest person in the world type of career books. They're definitely more like, what are my values? What's important to me? What do I want my workday to look like? How do I live this like holistic life? The name of the book is Designing Your Life or Designing Your Work Life. So with that, I will leave you guys. I will stay on for a few minutes if anybody has any questions, but I truly appreciate you attending our event tonight, and hope that Mountain Careers is a great resource for you guys, and have a great week. But I will hang out if anybody has any questions they'd like to put in the chat. So here's the other thing I'm going to give you. If you haven't already, please connect with me on LinkedIn. That's a great way to stay connected. I will stick this in the chat as well. Looks like we don't have any questions. So hopefully you guys are spending time writing down your goals and dreaming big about what might be possible here in the mountains.